the better relationships that we have got with kids, test scores go up, grades go up, attendance goes up. All the things that we want to have happen have an impact. Think back to when you were growing up. Did you have, I call him a star, a significant, trusted adult resource in your life who was there for you? And I'm going to tell you about one of mine. And actually, it's the only one that I can, well, I had two, but I'm going to share with you one who is a teacher. I was in a graduating class in my senior year of about 1,200, gigantic class. I was lost at school. I mean, I wasn't on this end of high performers. I wasn't on this end of low performers. I was right there in the middle. Does that sound familiar? Anybody here in the room? By the way, the kids that I am worried the most about in our culture today are the kids in the middle. Why? Because they're falling between the cracks. Why? Because they don't make waves. They're not getting the attention. And I was one of those kids. However, I was doing one thing. I was playing on the high school baseball team. And coaches in the room, I know you're here. Oh, the power you wield, I know you are aware of this, is so immense. And I'm seated in my language arts class. And I got this little pink slip. And it said, please come down to the office immediately. What do you think my first thought was? I'm in big trouble. But because language arts was not really my favorite class, ironically, I turned into an English teacher. My next thought was, I'm out of class. How many here love getting out of class? Yeah. And when you got out of class, what did you do? You took the longest route possible all the way down to the office. You have to check out what's going on in the girls' gym. You got to check out what's going on over here with your best buddies class. And I walked into the office. We had about a half an hour left. I took about 20 minutes to get down to the office. And I walked in, and what I had forgotten is that the counselor's office was right next to the principal's office. And the counselor was also the baseball coach. And he stepped out of his office excitedly, and he says, Jim, I'm so glad you could get out of class. What do you think my response was? Yeah, no problem. He says, come on into my office. Guess what we talked about for a half an hour? Baseball. He said, do you think we're going to win the city championship? How do you like being the leadoff hitter? Do you think the lineup is in the right way? And I'm going, what? I have an adult asking me for my input? He said, what do you think about Bob, starting out, at the next game? He had a rough game the last game. We spent a half an hour, that's all. I will never forget him for having done that. He is a S-T-A-R in my life. Those of you who are identified as being the wildest in the pair are our first speaker for this next activity. Those of you who are the unwildest are our listener for this activity. Listeners, this is your job. While the speaker is speaking, I want you to do one thing for sure. I want you to nod your head. Everybody try that out right now. Just do the head nod. Okay. I told my son who's in college, I said, Jeremy, when you're in your, he doesn't like his business class. So I said, when you're in your business class and you got your laptop open, what are you doing? And he says, I'm on Facebook. And I said, okay, if you're going to do that, I'm not going to change his behavior. I said, if you're going to do that, this is what I want you to do. Every 5 minutes, I want you to look up at the teacher and go, like that. It's a powerful nonverbal gesture. This is what I want you to do. You've got 2 minutes, and I want you to talk about the star in your life. I hope you had one. And listeners, I want you to do the nodding thing and ask questions. I'm the timekeeper. 2 minutes. Ready, begin. About how we have in the palm of our hand, literally, the most powerful underutilized group and energy force in the world, which is our kids. And they're going underutilized. Now, when I was in Texas, this is 5 years ago, I was talking to a Texas principal. And he said, you know what? Our test scores were in the dumpster. And he said, they always showed up on the front page of the paper. And he said, it's humiliating. He said, we had to bring them up. So he said, I went to about 5 of my best teachers. And I said, we know who some of these kids are that are pulling the tests down. I said, would you mind, and I know this is a big favor, would you mind tutoring them for 10 or 15 minutes a week even, just so that we can get a bump? And so the test came and went, and guess what? I got a really nice bump in their test scores. The principal went back to every one of these 5 teachers, and he said, I want to thank you so much for taking that time to tutor the kids. And he said to a teacher, they all went like this. And he said, Bob, I got to tell you something. I didn't have time to tutor the kids, but I'll tell you what I did. I went out of my way every day to say hello to them and ask them what was happening in their lives. And what we will find is that kids who feel engaged, school engagement, once again, test scores go up, grades go up, everything goes up. So this lady in Iowa comes to me, and she said, I didn't know what to do. So she said, but I did think of one thing. She said, every afternoon, at noon, I'd go out for a walk. And my walk would take me by the corner where all the high school smokers were hanging out. Let's say you guys are the high school smokers. I'm going to pick on you right now. She says, in the past, I'd get from about here to here, and I'd do this wide circle all the way around the high school smokers. She said, what I committed to do that one night was to walk by these guys and say hello. And she said, this totally freaked me out. Did you know that 75% of all Americans do not believe this generation is going to make a positive difference in America? We have got, and they're terrified of having a close encounter of the third kind with a teenager. So she committed to walk by these kids and say hello. So she said she was up half the night thinking about this. She was thinking, should I say hi, hello, what's up, what's going down, what's happening? You know, she said, I'm really freaked out by this whole thing. So if you can imagine, here she is. She's headed towards these kids. She gets 10 feet away. She freaks out. She said, oh, by the way, if you can imagine, the music of Jaws was playing in the background. She gets 10 feet away and she goes, hi, and then splits across the room as fast as she can. Says after 2 to 3 weeks, she got closer and closer. And, it was like, it's this huge dramatic story. She gets closer and closer to these kids, and finally they go, lady, who are you? And she says, I just lived down the block and I wanted to say hi to you. And they said, fine, come on in and join us. Have you noticed that this generation is, at least I've experienced this with my kids, are really open to interacting with adults? Or me? No way. I'm hanging out with my posse. And so they started hanging out and talking. And the most amazing thing started occurring. You know what happened? If one of them missed a day, guess what the first question is she asked? Where were you? And if she didn't show up one day, what's the first question they asked? Where were you? That's the power of relationship building. That's the power of recreating that sense of disconnected community. I'm going to toss this out to you rather than go to you right now. Did respect come up with anybody? Yes. Did integrity come up with anybody? Yeah. How about compassion? We have got to start a revolution, I believe, in this country through our kids that is going to retransform this entire culture. Okay, the power of passion. Let's go on to the next one. When I was 13 years old, I had one driving passion in life. And you know what that was? I wanted to be a writer for Mad Magazine. That was my goal in life. I'm the kid seated in your class who's got his book propped up, and behind that I'm doing Spy versus Spy, mad snappy answers to stupid questions. I was a writer. I now have 5 books published. I always wanted to write, but no one discovered that. Wouldn't it have been awesome if a teacher or a parent or somebody would have said, do you like to write? And I would have said, yes. And what if they would have connected me up with a writer or gotten me into an advanced course because I was beyond where we were, or started showing me some of the fine points. We've got kids like this absolutely everywhere who have passions that are not being fulfilled, that are positive, that would increase their thriving behaviors and drop their high-risk behaviors. Now, if you're into this thing, and I know some of you, I can tell when I've asked, some of you are and some of you aren't, to me, I learned this about 2 years ago, and it's one of the most powerful learnings I've ever had. And if you like it, write it down. Passion leads to rapid learning. Passion leads to rapid learning. What would be a good way to find out what kids' passions are? Ask them and observe them. And if any of you here are Maria Montessori fans, that was her entire theory. You pull out from the kid what God has put in their heart, and then you allow them to work with that. You and I know that our kids have got hearts of gold, and the costumes that they wear really are meaningless to a great extent. And I'm not saying go to dangerous places, but I'm saying forget the costume, go to the heart of the matter. We need to stop focusing on everything that's going wrong and start focusing on everything that's going right. I had one teacher tell me, he said, you know what? My school had become so deficit focused, I refused to go to the teacher lounge because everyone was reading the same book. And you know what that book was? It was called The Gripes of Wrath. He said everybody was in there complaining, I'm not getting paid enough, there's a kid, there's a parent, This is what I suggest you do. I used to do these problem-solving workshops where the very first thing that we would do is we would put chart paper up on the wall. We've got to start naming and claiming what's going well. This is the shift that's going on in the country.